You've tried to fix the business. You've restructured, rebranded, rehired. You've changed the process, changed the teams, changed your strategy, and you keep arriving at the same exact place. Tired in a way that a better quarter, a better balance sheet just does not touch. If this sounds familiar to you, stay with me, because what I want to talk about today is not about another business problem, and it's not another business solution. It's the thing underneath both of those, the thing that explains why you can fix everything on the surface and still feel like something is fundamentally wrong. My name is Chris Moore. I've spent 25 years sitting across from business owners who are good at what they do, and privately, they're exhausted by it. And I keep seeing the same thing underneath, exhaustion that nobody in the room is willing to name. That is what this episode is about. I want to tell you about a business owner I've worked with. I'm going to keep him anonymous because some of you no doubt are going to recognize his name if I tell you, but the details, they're real. He had built his business 3 times, not 3 different businesses, the exact same business rebuilt from the ground up 3 times over 15 years. Each time he did this, something fell apart. It was the team. He felt like the market had fallen. A partnership that he went into, and he went back to the beginning and built it again. Better systems the second time, following some better steps, better hiring the third, he thought. And he was genuinely good at building this business up to a certain point, but every rebuild came back stronger on paper than the version it had before. But every time he reached a certain altitude, and the same thing happened. That exhaustion level arrived for him. Not this productive exhaustion, not the one of hard work, that we feel like, especially when we're younger. He knew what that felt like, and he didn't mind that exhaustion, but this was different. It's heavier. The kind of tired that it really doesn't matter how much you sleep, it's just not going to touch it. His marriage was functioning, is pretty much probably how he would describe it, but it wasn't good, and his wife said the same. His kids knew his schedule, but they didn't really know him, and he didn't really know them either. His faith, it was present on Sunday. He was always there, but honestly, you would say it was mostly absent the other 6 days. I saw it firsthand. Not because he had intentionally walked away from it. I mean, in many ways, he still taught the talk, but somewhere along the line, he had decided that his faith lived in one room and his business lived in another, and there was not enough of him that he was going to be fully in both rooms really at the same time. Now, I met him after the 3rd rebuild. And this wasn't because his business was failing. The business was doing well. He had just finally admitted out loud what he had known for a while, that he could try and do this again a 4th time, but he really didn't know how to touch the problem, because the problem he had really was not in the business. The problem was him. And I mean, what do you say to that? Well, here's where I ended up. You have not been running a business. You've been running 2 separate lives. In the effort of maintaining that division is going to end up costing you everything. He looked at me for a moment and said, "How do you really know that?" And I told him, I knew it because I've lived it. I knew it because I've watched it happen repeatedly in business owner after business owner from the people I've met over the last 25, 30 years. This man, he was not failing at business. He was doing what most of us do when exhaustion arrives. He was looking for a new tactic, a new strategy, a new process, a technology. He was trying to find some better system, really ended up trying to focus on doing more, doing it smarter, doing it differently. You walk into Barnes and Nobles, that's what most of the books are about. And he never stopped to examine who is doing the doing. He didn't look at what he believed and what was driving him underneath all this activity. He had a reason for building this thing when he started. That's one of the questions I usually ask. Why did you go into business? But he had stopped asking about that reason a long time ago. He missed his mark, and this was not a business problem. This was how he was being problem, an identity problem, what he needed to be on the inside so that it could work through him to come to the outside. And no amount of doing other things fixes it. So let me name what is actually going on. Most Christian business owners have built this wall, and it's not a physical one. It's invisible most of the time between what they believe on Sunday and how they operate the other 6 days of the week. And you'll see a lot of organizations, Christian organizations, that try to address this, but a lot of times those organizations haven't existed on both sides of that wall. On one side of the wall, you have faith, church, scripture, prayer, the version of yourself that you bring to the people who know you as a believer, that walk at church on Sunday, who you say you are if you were to describe yourself as a person of faith. On the other side is the business, the decisions you have to make, the pressure, the team problems, the client problems, cash flow problems, the version of yourself that you feel like needs to be practical, pragmatic, unsentimental, the version that can't afford to let what you believe slow down what has to get done. Because you think that business and your faith are two different things, and that the Bible and Scripture, it really doesn't address this. It addresses what's inside, it addresses your faith, addresses your relationship with God, but it doesn't tell me how to run my business. And you maintain this division. You're careful about it. You're sometimes deliberate, because somewhere along the way, you learned that this is what professionalism looks like, that mixing of faith and business that, hey, it makes you seem like you're naive or soft, or worst of all, you're one of those people. You know, this idea of separation of church and state that we've heard our entire lives. We grew up absorbing it as a cultural value here in the U.S., and somewhere along the way, it migrated from a principle about government into a principle about life. Look, the government should not dictate religion. And that doesn't matter what the religion is. If it's mine, one I agree with, one I don't. That part is legitimate. That's what our founding fathers decided, so that we could live in one accord here and experience freedom of religion. That part, again, it's legitimate. That's a good idea. But that idea was never meant to build a wall between you and God and your business, your own decisions, your own Monday through Friday life. That's a political boundary that ended up becoming this theological one for a lot of people in their lives. And we accepted it without ever asking whether God agreed with that. The wall feels necessary because we have team members, customers, vendors, the community that's not necessarily people of the same faith that we are. But this wall that we set up that we think we need to have be there just actually produces a fracture in us. It's slow, but it's cumulative. In the person who has carried both sides of themselves into every room they enter. Turn this one on, turn this one off. Listen to this voice, don't listen to that one. I need to hold back here, but there's a moment in Luke 24 that I keep returning to. Not because it's the most dramatic moment in the Gospels, it's not, but because of where it happens and how. Take a look at this. It's Resurrection Sunday, but there's two disciples on the road to Emmaus who do not know that yet. They've watched Jesus die 3 days ago. They've watched everything they had staked their lives on, the person that they believed in, get arrested, beaten, killed, and buried. And now they're going home. They're not going to church. They're not going to a prayer meeting. They're on a regular road having a regular conversation, trying to make sense of something they just can't make sense of. They're headed back into ordinary life because that's all that they feel like there's left to do. And the scripture says this simply: Jesus himself drew near and went with them. He didn't appear in a sacred space. He didn't wait for them to get somewhere appropriate to get their act together or resolve this confusion. He walked out to where they already were on this regular road in the middle of their grief and confusion, and he fell into step beside them. He asked them, what were they talking about? He listened to everything they were carrying. He's God. He already knew, but he asked. He listened. He walked with them for the entire 7 miles. He didn't announce who he was. He asked questions. He let them tell their story. He was fully present in a moment that they would have described as just another ordinary day, meeting someone, walking on a road and having a conversation. And this was possibly one of the worst ordinary days of their lives. But stay with me here. This matters directly on how you're running your business. The wall we built between faith and work assumes that God belongs in a sacred space, this bubble, and the rest of our life, the commute, these difficult conversations with team members, even firing someone, the pricing decisions, the client you know you should walk away from, but you need the money, that all that belongs in a different category. That the ordinary is somehow outside of his reach. But the Emmaus Road is the story of exactly the opposite. Jesus shows up in the ordinary, in grief, on the road. While the work is happening and the confusion is real, nothing is resolved. He's not waiting for you to clean it up first before he shows up. He's already walking at your pace, asking questions before he gives answers. And here's the thing most business owners miss. The 2 disciples did not recognize him until the end. He was present the whole time, but they were moving too fast. They were too consumed, really, by the weight of what they were carrying inside, in their minds, in their thoughts, in their memories, to see what was already right beside them. He is walking with you right now, in the business, in the frustration, in this time that is not going the way it should, the team situation that really has no clean answer, the client you can't figure out how to handle or what you're going to do. He didn't leave when you walked out of church on Sunday. He's already there. He's gone before you. He's walking with you. The question is not whether he is present. And this is so hard to remember in the middle of life. But the question for us is whether we've left room for him in all of that, whether we will turn and listen and talk, whether you built this wall and told him to wait outside while you handle this. If the business is burning you out, I would ask you to sit with this before you hire some consultant or launch your next initiative. Is it possible that the burnout that maybe you're feeling, the stress that you're feeling, the things that's keeping you up at night is not a sign that you are doing too much? It's a sign that you've been doing it without the thing that has always meant to be underneath it all, supporting it, a part of it. And this is not a guilt question. It's an honest one. That's not a story from a long time ago. That is the business owner who restructured 3 times and keeps arriving at the exact same exhaustion level because all those 3 times have the same thing in common. Him. That's the owner of this company. And honestly, he's doing 5 million plus, who had everything he said he wanted and couldn't really name what was missing. A person who tithed, served in the church, read his Bible, still operates his business as if it had no bearing on how they treat their team, set their prices, or make decisions under pressure. Look, the wall is the problem, not the business. The work I do with business owners operates on this simple premise. You cannot build a business that outlasts you on a foundation that is tearing you apart. Every system, every strategy, every hire It all flows from you, from the person making those decisions or delegating those decisions. And if that person is running a divided life, carrying two versions of themselves into the rooms they walk in, or choosing which version they're going to take with them, the one they're going to show, that business begins to reflect that fracture, whether they realize it or not. This is where we spend a lot of our lives and why our lives fracture. Identity must come before strategy every time, before your vision, before your mission statements, before all of that. Who you are and what God is calling you to be has to come first every time. Who you are drives what you build. Who you are can't be separated from what you believe unless you start paying a price somewhere. The man who rebuilt his business 3 times was not failing at business. He was successful on the outside, failing on the inside, failing at home, really failing with his community. He was carrying a weight that no business system was built to hold. So here's what I want you to do before you do anything else. Before you read another business book, before you hire somebody, I want you to name the wall. Not generally, but be specific. Where exactly did you build it? What decision did you make, or what season did you walk through that taught you to keep faith on one side and business on the other? Was it a failure you didn't want God associated with? A success maybe that you wanted to own? A moment where you were bringing your full self? All of it, your belief, your faith, felt like a liability to that success, like you couldn't reach what the world envisioned you to have unless you left God out of it. Name the wall and name where you built it, because you can't dismantle something in your life if you haven't identified it and located it. Write it down if you need to. Say it out loud. That's not always easy, but be specific. I keep my faith and my business separate is a diagnosis. Saying I started doing that in 2015 when my partnership collapsed and I needed to move fast and there was no room for anything that slowed me down. I had to get this done. Maybe that was the beginning of real work. That is the first question. That is where this starts, that you know that you have put God in a box when you need to. And put your honest answer. Put it in the comments. Send me a direct message, and not the church answer, the real one. Where's this wall in your life? How long has it been there? I'm going to read every comment, and I'll respond to you. Look, if this landed for you today, I want to put something in your hands that will take it further. I wrote this book. It's called God at Work, 30 Days of Prayer to Build Your Kingdom Business, and it's free. This is not a pay shipping, and I will send you this book. I'm going to send you an electronic copy of this book, EPUB and PDF, so you can put it on your tablet or your phone. 30 days, short readings, built specifically for the owner who is done treating their faith and their work as separate concerns. This is not devotional content that has nothing to do with your actual business. It's 30 days of practical, honest engagement, what it looks like to bring your whole self into the business you're building. You can download it at therefining.co/book. Again, it's not going to cost you anything at all. At the end of 30 days, I promise you will look at your business and the way that you're working in it totally different. Subscribe if you're not already. Try to put out new episodes every week, and I look forward to seeing you next time.